lunch and I'm hungry. It's that time of day. On the menu, I'm gonna make some red lentil soup. Now this is my own recipe and it's about as easy as it gets for lentil soup, and it's super good, super fast, and super easy. It's very few ingredients, all healthy, all natural, no crap in it. Let me show you what we're gonna put in it. Okay, so this is it. We have a couple of sweet onions there. We've got a clove of garlic. We're gonna put, we've got a bunch of garlic. We're gonna use probably most of that. I like it really garlicky. You can back it off if you don't like it really garlicky. And we've got a large can of tomatoes. Let's see here, this is a, just so you could see what the size is, 796 milliliters or 28 fluid ounces. And then of course we need our lentils. So it's a big bag of red lentils, but we just need 2 cups, and I'm going to use that measuring cup there to measure it out. And the other thing we're going to need is 4 cups of water and some salt and pepper, but that's to taste, so you can add it in or not. That's what I put in mine. And oh yeah, I almost forgot, we're going to use some coconut oil. Half cup of coconut oil goes in, and we are going to saute the onions and garlic in the coconut oil first, which really enhances the flavor. For this recipe, I'm going to be using my pressure cooker. This is a Lagostina pressure cooker, and this is the manual kind. I'm actually really excited. I have an Instapot pressure cooker, electric programmable pressure cooker coming, but it is not here yet. So we're going to be using my old Lagostina pressure cooker until such a time as we get the Instapot. Now, if you don't have a pressure cooker, not to fear, you can make this quite easily in a pot. That's the way I made it for years. And so you just put it in a pot on the burner, you bring it to a boil, and then once it's brought to a boil, you reduce it and let it simmer for 2 to 2.5 hours, and that will do the same thing. The difference here is the pressure cooker is going to allow me to make this in about 10 minutes, actually probably less. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get our onions chopped up, because we need to saute the onions and the garlic put into the pot with the lentils and the water. Just got my compost bucket here. If you hear the pitter-patter of little feet in the background, that is Penny the Bulldog wandering around, and her nose is telling her that I'm making something to eat. So she's sitting around hoping to get something put in her bowl. She loves onions. She's eating them. I know dogs aren't supposed to eat onions, but she does love them. We try not to give them to her, but occasionally she gets a scrap of one. So I'm just gonna slice up the onions into fairly small pieces, appropriate for sautéing. If you saute the onions and the garlic before you put them into the soup to cook, the flavor is way better. Now you can actually saute it in butter. I've been following kind of a bit of a all-natural vegetarian type diet the last little bit, just trying to lose a few extra pounds. So I'm going to use coconut oil, but feel free to use butter if that's what you feel like. I'm just going to put the onions into the measuring cup for now, without having to go grab another bowl, because they are all going to go into the frying pan to get sauteed. Now, garlic, I would say, is to taste. If you're a big fan of garlic, then you should put in what I'm putting in, which is probably going to be 6 to 8 cloves. I might even put this whole head in, because I find once it's cooked in, it's not that overly strong. But I love garlic, so if you're somebody that doesn't like a lot of garlic or doesn't like garlic at all, either reduce to taste, or if you just like a little bit, just go with a little bit. you don't like garlic at all, leave it out. One of the things I learned ages ago is to first crush each of the garlic cloves with the back side of the knife, because it really wakes up the flavor in the garlic and brings out all the flavor and the oils and whatnot from the garlic. Just put the palm of your hand on the back of your knife. Just be careful you don't cut yourself. If you're not highly coordinated, maybe you don't want to do that. The other thing it does is it makes it really easy to peel the garlic once you've done that. So as you can see, the peel flakes off pretty easy after you crush it. So it does two things. Makes it easier to peel, but it also really wakes up, I don't think I crushed that one, really wakes up the flavor in the garlic. If you give it a good crush, the peel comes off like crazy really fast. And so not only does it make it easier to peel, it gives us better flavor. And if you've ever tried to peel garlic without crushing it, just normal, you probably have found that it's very tricky, hard sometimes to get these skins out. I'm gonna put a lot of garlic in. I'm gonna put all this whole head of garlic, whatever, I don't know what you call, I think the individual ones are called cloves, and I don't know what you call a bunch, a head, I'm not sure. Anyways, all of it's going into the with the onions to be sautéed. So this will be fairly garlicky. So probably too much if you're not a huge garlic fan, but maybe not enough if you're a huge fan. So then what we want to do is, once we have them all, just want to get all the skins from the garlic off my knife. Once we have them all like that, we're just gonna mince them up. So just gonna put it up. There is probably a better chef way. I am no famous chef, so my slicing and dicing skills are probably less than stunning for you. But hey, they get the job done. Just kind of go over it a few ways like this. The thing is, you want it chopped up and minced because it cooks better and it spreads it around better while it's cooking. But this soup is going to be blended, so it's not as important to for the size of it as far as eating, because it's going to be all blended up once we cook the soup anyways. There's Penny the bulldog. Follow me around expectantly wanting something to eat. She's looking around going, what's going on here? First of all, she doesn't like the camera, and second of all, she's thinking she hasn't got enough to eat yet. But hey, Pen. She's indignant. Okay, so there is the onions and the garlic. And actually, I made a little faux pas there, because usually you don't add your garlic in till after, and I just tossed it in on the top of the onions, which I should not have done. And there is my frying pan. I'm just going to see about pulling that garlic out of there, because I do like to add it in afterwards. If you put it in, the onions take longer, and the garlic tends to burn if you put it in all together. Okay, so I separated it out. The garlic is in a bowl now, and most of it anyways, and the onions are still in there. We'll start with the onions first. These are things you don't think about when you are just cooking away to yourself and not trying to film it at the same time. Okay, so we are gonna take the coconut oil, which is right here. We're gonna put in, what did I say, half a cup. And you guys should measure it, just to be sure. I am going to spitball it. It doesn't have to be half a cup, it can be a little more, a little less. I'm figuring that's probably about half a cup there. Put the lid back on our coconut oil. And I'm going to turn that up to medium-high. And actually we could throw the onions in right away. It'll take a minute for that coconut oil to melt down. And as you can see, I have the garlic left aside here. We're going to let this cook a bit first. While we're waiting for that to heat up, we'll take our lentils and our tomatoes. Let's put the tomatoes to the side for a moment. But the lentils, we're going to want 2 cups of lentils. We can get those out right now. Let's get the tape off the bag. So I'm going to pour in 2 cups. You want to hit it pretty much bang on because your water to lentil ratio is important. So just for cooking reasons. So if you get too many lentils and not enough water, it's not going to be right. And converse, a little bit extra water usually doesn't hurt, but okay, I think we're right about right for 2 cups there. Get our bag of lentils out of the way. So I'm going to add that into the pressure cooker here. Then I'm going to go and get 4 cups of water. Gonna add that to the pressure cooker. We actually got a bunch of stick-on lentils left in the measuring cup. I was thinking I needed a spatula, but then I realized probably my fingers will do that. Yes, that did that fine. You could probably hear that our onions are starting to sizzle up there. Just drying off a spatula. I'm going to just toss them around a little bit in the pan here, move them around, distribute the oil and the heat amongst. Okay, so we're well on our way. Onions are sautéing, and once they start to go a little translucent color, then we'll throw in our garlic to bring it up. The 2 cups of red split lentils are in the pressure cooker, and 4 cups of water. What we need now is we need to open up our can of tomatoes. A little cluttered over here, but I'm trying to not move the camera too much and still show you guys what I'm doing. Be nice if I had a professional TV kitchen, but I don't. Okay, so electric can opener. These are always helpful. Easy peasy. Once again, that is a 796 milliliter, 28 fluid ounces can of tomatoes. Now, I used diced tomatoes just because I like diced tomatoes, but feel free to use whatever you got. I like to find ones that don't have any added spices or any added preservatives or junk in them, just because we're trying to make this a healthy soup. So just some plain tomatoes with as little in the can besides tomatoes as possible. Ideally, just tomatoes. Okay, those are coming along nicely. The exposure's down a little because the onions were looking pretty hot on the camera in the sense of too bright. So everything else may look a little dim because the onions were looking, because they're white, and they were looking very, very overlit. So I turned the exposure down on the camera because at the moment we are cooking the onions. Oh, they smell good. If you're like me, you love the smell of sautéing onions and garlic. It just makes me even hungrier. So we've put our tomatoes in with the lentils in the water. Gonna rinse our can out here, clean up as we go along. Put the can opener away. Give the onions a bit of a toss in the pan here with the spatula. And they are coming along just nicely in here. I think it's about time to add our garlic. We'll get our garlic in with the onions there. As I said, you can use butter to do your sautéing. The recipe calls for half a cup of butter. I just, I mean, you can do this without sautéing the onions and the garlic, but I've just found that it tastes so much better if you use the butter, or like I use, the coconut oil, to actually do the sautéing, and then you add it all in to the soup ingredients before you cook it, because it just wakes up the flavor in the garlic and in the onions. The oil actually starts to take the flavor of the garlic and onions too, which is great. And then when you add it in, it makes for a really delicious soup. Coconut oil is much healthier for you than butter. It's actually good for weight loss. There's a coconut oil diet book out there. It's just very, very healthy oil. It's very stable at heat, so it's a very good cooking oil. It's been used for centuries all over the world. And it's well known to be a healthy oil, a stable oil. Doesn't break down when you're putting heat on it, so it's really good for sautéing, and it's just good for you in general. It's a healthy thing to eat. Healthier than butter, which these days you're not sure what's in butter a lot of the time because you don't know what your cows have been eating. Not that I have anything against butter. I'm just trying to trim off a few pounds here. So the coconut oil, I really like the taste of it, and it is healthier. So these are almost done. I can tell because they're getting very translucent looking, and the smell too. Just going to give them another minute or two here. I'm going to get the salt and pepper out of the cupboard. I like to use fresh ground, so I've got my salt pepper mill and my pepper mill. I guess it's a salt mill and a pepper mill, not a salt pepper mill. And those are looking about perfect. So I'm going to add those into our pressure cooker here very carefully so as not to spill the oil or our onions. Make sure we get that all in there. I want to get all of our coconut oil in there too. So that turned out well. Now it's as simple as adding some salt here, a little bit. Don't have to add much because there's probably some in with the tomatoes. And then pepper. We want to pepper to taste a bit. So if you like pepper, add a little extra. If you're not a big fan of pepper, don't put as much in. I like pepper, and I'm going to put some in. Okay, there we go. Now, if you didn't have a pressure cooker, at this point you would turn it on high until it reaches a boil. Once it starts to boil, then you turn it down to low and let it simmer for 2 to 2.5 hours. Because I have a pressure cooker, I'm going to put the lid on the pressure cooker, shut the pressure valve, and I'm going to turn this to high, and I'm going to wait for it to build up a head of steam, wait for the pressure to build up, and then I'm going to let it cook at high. Once it's running there, then I'll turn it down to medium, and I'm going to let it cook for about 5-6 minutes, and then I'll let the pressure fall off, and literally it'll be done. That's as fast as long as it takes. It's you could pretty much make this all in about 15 minutes and have it ready to eat. At which point you can eat it as is, or what I do with it and what I would suggest you do is I throw it in the blender and then give it a good blend so it's nice and rich and creamy, and it makes a nice thick creamed style soup. So I like my soups like that a lot of the time. I like to blend them and it works really good. I use the Vitamix. If you don't have a Vitamix, pretty much any blender will do. Sometimes a thick soup is hard on a cheaper blender without a great motor. My Vitamix here works like a champ. So I really like my Vitamix. I don't know why I have a paper towel on top of it there, but there it is.
While I'm waiting for the pressure cooker here to build up a head of steam, I'm going to start tidying up the kitchen. I always like to do that as I'm cooking, because then when I'm ready to eat and I'm finished, I don't have as much to clean up, which is always a bonus.
Okay, so the pressure cooker has just pressurized. The little pressure knob indicator right there popped up, which let us know that it's under pressure and it is starting to pressure cook. So I'm just going to leave the temperature where it is until it builds up a good solid head of pressure, and then I'll reduce it to medium and we'll give it 5 minutes, and then our soup will be ready to take out and throw in the blender. I've just taken out a large bowl and the large Vitamix blender jug, because that is what I will be blending the soup in once it's ready here. And as you can hear, the pressure cooker is built up quite a good head of steam. It is rocking, sizzling, whistling away. I guess it's whistling. So I'm going to reduce the heat on that to medium, and we're going to give it 5 minutes. Okay, so the timer has just gone off on the pressure cooker, and you could see that it is still pressurized. I've moved it off the hot burner there, turned off our burner, and moved it over to a cool spot on the stove, and I'm just going to let it depressurize naturally. You could, it is finished, I've done it before, you can pull up the valve on the pressure cooker on the back side here on mine, or wherever your release valve is on your pressure cooker, and just off vent it quickly and then blend it. I'm just going to give it a couple minutes to naturally reduce the heat and lower the pressure there before it drops off. So I've given it about 5 minutes. The pressure is still up. I'm going to, at this point, release manually here. You can hear there's not a lot of pressure left in there. It's just a slow hiss. If I'd have released that right away, you would have heard a very loud, highly pressurized hiss as all that steam came out. But it's coming out right now. It's probably, I think my valve sticks. There we go. So, time to take the lid off. Switch on this pressure cooker, you just flip the handle back. Oh, that looks and smells good. Smells delicious. Check it out, that looks perfect. Cooked really nicely. Now it's a question of getting it into the blender and blending it up. I've just got a 1 cup measuring scoop. I'm going to take the lid off the Vitamix jug. Again, I'm using the big jug. I'm going to count out my scoops just so I know how many cups I've got in here. So that's 1, 2 cups, 3 cups, and about 4 cups. Don't want to overfill it because it doesn't blend that well if you do. So I just want to give it a good blend, make sure everything is in there, is all blended up into a nice creamy soup. And then we're just going to take the blender jug and pour the soup into this bowl. The point of doing this is to, once it's all blended, just to make sure that there wasn't any more portions of something in one section, since we're not blending it all at once. So kind of just one last stir up, if you will. I'll move the soup back out of the way and refill the blender jug. You might be able to get all of the rest in. That's 2 cups, 3 cups, and 4 cups. I think we're gonna have 3 blends on this one. Once again, we are just going to empty the blended soup back into the bowl here, or not back into it, but into the bowl. so we can combine it all up. And we got one more jug to blend. Makes a good bit of soup, this one here. Very economical recipe too, because your cost on 2 cups of lentils, can of tomatoes, couple onions, and some garlic is very minimal. I mean, probably $2 to $3. I don't think any more than $3. You'd have to be buying some pretty expensive onions to get more than $3 on that. Okay, and last one. That is all the soup. I'm just going to get a spatula out of the, I'm dropping it, out of the utensil holder. Try to get all of our soup out of the Vitamix container. Don't want to waste any. Good stuff. Just spent all this time cooking it. I shouldn't say all this time. Really, you could do this in 15 minutes if you were not trying to film it like I am for you guys. And if you're, I mean, you just got to cook, slice up your onions, slice up your garlic, saute them quick, and you're good to go. So there we go. There we have it. Some pretty delicious looking soup. I can't wait to have a bowl of that. I'm going to get myself a bowl of that right now. As we speak, I'm going to get a bowl of that. Just going to give it a quick stir. Make sure everything is all stirred up from all the various blends. And I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat 2 cups of this. Scrape off the measuring cup so we don't waste it. Good stuff. Really creamy. Nice looking too with the orange, using the red lentils, it looks really nice. Okay, so that's my easy peasy, super delicious, super quick red lentil soup recipe. And I've got a bowl right here, so I'm gonna go and have my lunch. I'll put all the ingredients down below in the video description for you. You can check them out if you want to try this soup. Super nutritious, no garbage in here, just good, wholesome food and very few ingredients. Lentils, water, some onions, garlic, little salt and pepper if you want. Use some coconut oil or you can use butter, and that's it. Oh, and canned tomatoes. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll be back soon. Just having some right now. Absolutely delicious. You should really try this, folks. It is so good. I actually like to put a little liquid Mrs. Bragg's in there too. But check it out. Very, very good.